Hey everybody. So one of my favorite things to do on this channel when we're not talking about current NHL events and current things going on is to look back on different drafts, free agency, and trades, and just think about how different things could be if teams made different decisions at that time. And today we're going to look back at the last recent history of NHL drafts from 2005 on and look at who is the worst player taken in the top 10 each draft year, and you know who would have been better options for that team to take with those picks. So before we get into the video, I just quickly want to remind everyone to please hit that like button down below. That really helps out the channel. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all my hockey content this season and all year round. So I'm only going to go up through the 2015 draft for this because anyone drafted 2016 or more recently, I still think it's a little too early to tell. And I don't want to be making final determinations on players drafted that recently. Because those guys are still in their early 20s or late teens, depending on the year, and still have potential to put a decent NHL career together. So this is for 2005 through the 2015 draft. Let's take a look at who is the worst player drafted in the top 10 from each year, starting with 2005. And in 2005, we have Bryan Lee, who was taken 9th overall by the Ottawa Senators. He's a defenseman, and he just never really made it at the NHL level. He only played 209 career games, scoring 5 goals and 31 assists for 36 points. He was a minus 37 on his career. So Bryan Lee did not turn out the way that the Ottawa Senators wanted him, drafting him in the top 10. And this really stings because of some of the players who were taken after him. Anze Kopitar, who has obviously become a Stanley Cup champion and incredibly good center for the Los Angeles Kings, was taken 11th overall that year, just 2 picks later. And Mark Stahl, if Ottawa wanted to go with defense, was taken 12th overall that year by the New York Rangers. They could have had Mark Stahl. They drafted Bryan Lee instead, and that did not work out. Moving on to 2006. 2006, the worst player taken in the top 10 is Peter Mueller, who was taken 8th overall by the Phoenix Coyotes that year. He's a forward. Mueller did play at the NHL level. He, had some decent seasons. His rookie year was his best year. He had a 20-goal, 50-point season as a rookie with the Phoenix Coyotes, and it looked like, okay, this guy can play. It was all downhill from there after Mueller's rookie season, and after bouncing around to some different teams, he was pretty much relegated out of the league to Europe, and then the AHL, and then Europe again, and Peter Mueller never really lasted at the NHL level. He played 297 career games, scoring 63 goals and 97 assists for 160 career points, and a minus 35 career plus-minus rating. Wasn't a terrible player, didn't last very long at the NHL level, however. Definitely not what you want out of a top 10 pick if you're the Coyotes. And some very notable players to go after Mueller 8th overall are Michael Frolik, who went at number 10, Brian Little, who was drafted number 12 that year. Both of them are still in the NHL, and both of them are quality middle-of-the-lineup players for their respective teams. And Michael Grabner went at 14 overall that year. He currently plays for the Coyotes. In an interesting twist there, the Coyotes could have had him at number 8. They drafted Mueller instead. Grabner went to the Islanders at 14. But over the course of the years, Grabner has found himself in Arizona with the Coyotes anyway. 2007. This is a tough one for me being a Bruins fan, but this is a brutal pick. 2007, the Boston Bruins selected Zach Hamill with the 8th overall pick. He's a forward who never even really made it to the NHL. He only played 20 career games, scoring 4 assists, no goals for 4 points and a +5 rating. I watched this guy for years with the Providence Bruins in the AHL. He was brutal to watch, incredibly soft, useless player. One of the guys I absolutely shredded on for years when he was playing in Providence. Could not stand this guy. Complete waste of an 8th overall draft pick by Boston. And the worst part about this pick for me as a Bruins fan is that the next pick, number 9 overall, was Logan Couture, who has gone on to have an incredible career with the San Jose Sharks. He's their captain now. He's a fantastic top 6 center. Logan Couture could have been a Boston Bruin, and the Bruins could have had Patrice Bergeron, Logan Couture, and David Krejci as their lineup down the middle. Instead, we wanted Zach Hamill, and that obviously turned out very, very badly for the Boston Bruins. Also, Ryan McDonagh, another notable player that year, went 12th overall to Montreal, but then he got traded, obviously, in the Scott Gomez deal to the New York Rangers before he ever played in Montreal. But Ryan McDonagh went number 12 that year. Imagine if Boston had drafted McDonagh and had a shutdown D pairing of Zdeno Chara and Ryan McDonagh through the 2010s. They probably would have won more than one cup if that was the case. Yeah, awful draft there in 2007 for the Bruins. Moving on to 2008. 2008, I have Luke Schenn being drafted by Toronto at 5th overall as the worst pick that year. Luke Schenn has actually gone on to have an NHL career. He's played over 700 games. But Luke Schenn at this point is a depth defenseman who gets into the lineup sometimes a healthy scratch. He's spent some time in the minors in recent years. Luke Schenn has not had the career or did not develop into the player that you would expect when you take someone at the 5th overall pick. He was a top 5 pick as a defenseman, and he's turned into a bottom pair depth defenseman at best. That is not a good pick. Now, in Luke Schenn's defense, a lot of these players taken in 2008 did not turn out to be worthy of their draft position. 2008 was a draft where the high picks, a lot of them were like, ooh, they were picked that high. That's rough. But taking Luke Schenn at number 5 for Toronto was not good. He was supposed to kind of be the future of that team's defense, and that did not happen. So he's got 739 career games played. He's had some good seasons in his career, especially his time in Philadelphia. I thought he was at least a solid bottom pair defenseman. He scored 31 goals, 115 assists for 146 points, and a minus 56 career rating. He's played on some bad teams, especially those early years in Toronto, and then in recent years he's barely been in the lineup at times. And it just sucks for Toronto because they could have had better players. Josh Bailey, player for the New York Islanders, who's putting a very, very good NHL career together, was taken at 9th overall that year. He would have been a better pick. And if they needed a defenseman, Tyler Myers was taken 12th overall that year. He's had a better NHL career than Luke Schenn certainly has. And Myers now obviously just got that big contract from Vancouver, top 4 defenseman. I think Toronto, looking back, would have rather drafted Tyler Myers than Luke Schenn with that pick. 2009, and this is a brutal one if you're a Dallas Stars fan. The Dallas Stars in 2009 picked forward Scott Glenny with the 8th overall pick. And safe to say that pick did not work out for Dallas, as he only played one career NHL game, had no points, no rating, nothing, never really got out of the minors. And for a top 10 pick, that is particularly bad. When you're drafted in the top 10, at this point, when you're expected to be in the NHL like within a couple of years, you're certainly expected to be in the NHL at some point, and Scott Glenny never really made it. He, again, only one career game. And this is particularly brutal because taken 2 picks after Scott Glenny was Ryan Ellis, who has become a star defenseman for the Nashville Predators, taken 11th overall, and Zach Kassian, who's having a great year with the Edmonton Oilers this year, was taken 13th overall by Buffalo. Dallas could have had either of those players, and they took Scott Glenny, who never even made it. 2010, This one is another interesting one. 2010 was not a bad draft year, but the worst pick in the top 10 in my mind is Dylan McIlrath, going 10th overall to the New York Rangers. And he's a big, strong, tough defenseman. But pretty much right after he was drafted, the league started going in a completely different direction, away from the tough, physical defenseman and much more towards the speed and skill game that we see now. And that was not good for Dylan McIlrath, who I think it's mostly his skating that has kept him out of the NHL. He is a player that I think deserved more of an NHL chance. He's never been given a full season at the NHL level. The most career games he's had in 1 year was 34. He's played 56 career NHL games, scoring 3 goals and 2 assists for 5 points and a +6 rating. He still plays with the Detroit Red Wings. He's been up and down between the minors and the NHL this year. Will probably play some more NHL games throughout the season, but McIlrath's never really made it at the NHL level. And that's particularly tough because the Rangers could have had Cam Fowler, who went 12th overall to the Anaheim Ducks. He has obviously become a very, very good defenseman for the Anaheim Ducks. Or they could have had Jaden Schwartz, the forward who plays for St. Louis and is now a Stanley Cup champion, who went 14th overall. And McIlrath has just never stuck at the NHL level. 2011, this is an interesting one. Now, 2011, I have Ryan Strome, forward, being taken 5th overall by the New York Islanders. And Ryan Strome is not a bad player. And he's still in the NHL. He's playing for the New York Rangers, other New York team. And he's actually having a pretty good season this year. The problem with this pick and what makes it the worst is who went after Ryan Strome. And we'll get into that in a second. But Strome, still playing in the NHL, has 439 career games played. That will go up as the season and the years go along. 83 goals, 130 assists for 213 points and a +7 rating. Ryan Strome, like I said, is not a bad player. The problem is he was drafted 5th overall. And look at the players who went after him. 6th overall, Mika Zibanejad. 7th overall, Mark Scheifele. 8th overall, Sean Couturier. 4 centers in a row drafted at number 5, 6, 7, and 8 in that 2011 draft. The New York Islanders picked the worst one out of those 4. They were picking first, and they picked the worst one out of those 4. Mika Zibanejad, who's now Strome's teammate with the Rangers, is a clear-cut number 1 center and a star player. Mark Scheifele has become an absolute superstar with the Winnipeg Jets, and Sean Couturier is a star with the Philadelphia Flyers, whereas Ryan Strome has basically been a middle-of-the-lineup third-line center from pretty much most of his career. And his first few seasons with the Islanders were absolutely brutal. He had some real rough times in New York before getting traded to Edmonton and then traded to the Rangers, where things are starting to go a little bit better for him with the New York Rangers. But Zibanejad could have had him. Scheifele could have had him. Couturier could have had him. They picked Strome. That was the wrong pick. Next up is 2012, and 2012, I'll give you, was a brutal draft year in general. That was a really bad draft where not a lot of players worked out, and there were plenty of options for worst top 10 pick, but when you take someone 1st overall, they better turn out, and this is a clear-cut one in my opinion. The worst top 10 pick in 2012 was the Edmonton Oilers taking Yakupov 1 overall. He's one of the biggest draft busts in NHL history. When you're drafting 1st overall, you don't only need an NHL player, you need a franchise-changing NHL player. Somebody who you can lean on for the next 15 years as an elite, star of the team. And Yakupov was anything but that for the Edmonton Oilers. He played 350 career games, 62 goals, 74 assists for 136 points, a -89 career rating. -89 career rating. And he is already out of the league and back to Russia. yeah, Nail Yakupov did not work out at the NHL level. Didn't work out in Edmonton, didn't work out in St. Louis or Colorado or any of the other teams he played for. He was given up on very quickly, and rightly so by the Oilers. They knew pretty early on that this was not going to work out. And he is, like I said, one of the worst draft busts in NHL history. And now overall, that draft was not good. So other teams made serious mistakes as well. But some players that went after Yakupov that would have been much better won overall. Morgan Rielly, defenseman for the Toronto Maple Leafs, went 5th overall that year. Hampus Lindholm, defenseman for the Anaheim Ducks, went 6th overall. And Matt Dumba went 7th overall, defenseman for the Minnesota Wild. Edmonton's a team that still has a defense problem all these years later. Could have gotten a legit top 4 or top pair defenseman with that draft pick at 1 overall. They could have had Rielly, Lindholm, or Dumba. They didn't take him. They took Yakupov, and the rest is bad history. Moving on now to 2013, and the NHL draft redeemed itself in 2013, as many of those picks did work out, especially the top picks. So the worst pick in 2013 is, I always get this name wrong. I cannot pronounce it. I have no idea why. Valerie I cannot say it. I do not know why. I've been practicing it and I still can't say it. Valerie Nichushkin, picked 10th overall by the Dallas Stars. He's still in the NHL playing for the Colorado Avalanche now, but he did not work out in Dallas. And out of all those top 10 picks, he is definitely the worst. He's played 239 career games, scoring 23 goals and 52 assists for 75 points and a +16 rating. Like I said, he's still in the NHL, but he's a bottom 6 player. There were a lot of great players taken before him, and there were better players taken after him, including Max Domi, taken 12th overall. That's right, Dallas could have had Max Domi instead. That probably would have worked out a lot better. Josh Morrissey was taken 13th overall, defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets. And Alex Wenberg from Columbus was taken 14th overall. Any of those three would have been better picks than who Dallas took there. I'm not even going to attempt the name again. 2014, the worst top 10 pick in 2014 is Michael Dell Cole, taken 5th overall by the New York Islanders. Now, the good news for Dell Cole is that he's playing at the NHL level for the first time this year on a full-time basis. He is a regular in the Islanders lineup. So things might be turning around and headed in the right direction. However, up to this point, he's only played 49 career games, scoring 4 goals and 6 assists for 10 points and a +4 rating. Maybe he's just a slow developer, but out of those top 10 picks, you know, when you take him 5th overall, there were obviously much better options. Players taken after him have turned out to be better players, particularly William Nylander, who was taken 8th overall that year. That would have been a lot better of a pick. Or Nikolai Ehlers, who was taken 9th overall. You look at that and you go, oof, the Islanders made a mistake there. So Dell Cole hasn't really made it at the NHL level yet. That doesn't mean he's never going to. But so far, it looks like taking him at number 5 was not a good choice for the Islanders. And moving on, the last one, 2015. Now, 2015 was a very good draft, and Pavel Zacha is not a bad player, and he's playing now at the NHL level regularly for the New Jersey Devils. However, he was taken at number 6 overall by New Jersey, and there were much better options for the Devils with that pick. He's played 219 career games, scoring 31 goals and 54 assists for 85 points, and a -26 career rating. But the problem is the players that were taken after Pavel Zacha. So before him, obviously you have McDavid, Jack Eichel were the 1-2 punch. They both turned into superstars. Dylan Strome is really finding his game with the Chicago Blackhawks. Mitch Marner, star for Toronto. Noah Hanifin, very solid defenseman. Pavel Zacha then taken at number 6. Then after Zacha, you have Ivan Provorov taken at number 7, Zach Werenski taken at number 8, Timo Meier taken at number 9, and Mikko Rantanen taken at number 10. You want to go beyond that, Lawson Krause at number 11 was a good pick as well. Zacha sticks out as the one who, out of that entire top 10, hasn't really turned into a star player. I mean, McDavid and Eichel are superstars. Strome's playing very well. Marner's a superstar. Hanifin, I mean, at least a top four defenseman. Provorov's the #1 guy in Philadelphia. Werenski's a top pair guy in Columbus. Timo Meier's a top 6 forward and a 30-goal guy with San Jose. Mikko Rantanen's turned into a superstar. And then you have Pavel Zacha, who's basically been a middle-of-the-lineup center throughout his career. So he's not a bad player, but given how everyone else taken around him turned out, and literally the rest of that top 10 has turned into star players. 2015 was a great draft year. Zacha hasn't gotten there yet. So that right now makes him the worst pick out of that top 10. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com. Don't do that. That doesn't exist anymore. I have no idea why I said that. But anyway, social media links are down in the description. If you want to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. I hope nobody's still watching at the end of this video as I flub my end screen speech up very, very badly here. But thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And I will talk to you guys soon.